So I've just let that process, and what's happened is you can see that both my models are on right now. So I've got my high res model. I'll just turn that off, and if you look at the low res model now, that detail has been transferred across onto the low poly version of the model. It's done it quite smoothly all across. The only problem that I'm having is just under the eye here. What I can do is I can now take the subdivision level down, go into my geometry, and just quickly fix that. So sometimes when you're doing some kind of projection, you'll find it always that you'll get some problems here and there. Sometimes you can avoid them, but a lot of the times you might get some of these errors that you're getting. So I'm just going to come down to a lower level and just smooth this out a bit, just so that it doesn't kind of give me a bit of a bump in my later stages. So it's just, I've just decided to smooth it out a little bit. It doesn't really take away from any of the other detail. Because this time around I also selected, and I said to the projection that transfer my texture detail or my poly paint across, it's also brought that poly paint detail, the texture across onto this version of the model. The cool thing with this is that I have my super low poly version and I have my high res version, and it also contains the UVs that I've unwrapped on it. So now all that detail that I have done, it no longer exists. It still exists on the other model that I might have that I originally had done, but now I've got a replica of that. So if I just switch on the high res model and turn this one off, you can see there's hardly any difference. So if I turn this one on and turn that one off, there's hardly any difference. And this is a replica of that, but of course this is much more cleaner. You can see the topology on this one is much more cleaner and it's designed to be taken back into Maya or its optimized version of the model itself. So now what I want to do is I want to extract this texture detail, and we've already done that last week, but we'll do it again. But this time around I'll show you a little bit more features. Under the UV map here, you can choose what texture size you want to produce. So 2048 is by default selected, so if you wanted to go lower you can do that. If you want to go larger you can also do that. And under texture map I'm going to hit create, and I'm going to again choose from poly paint. Now like I said last week, whenever you create a texture, in order to export it out you have to hit clone texture, and you'll see that this kind of loads up here. And if I go into my texture menu here, it's actually loaded up here. Any texture that you load up, you have to flip it flip it vertically. So I'm going to hit flip V, and I'm going to export this out into my folder here. I'm actually going to choose, I've already got a version, but I'll just overwrite that one. I'm going to hit save. Yes, and you can see that's my texture the model. Hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to take out the normal maps. Now I'm just going to close this one and then come down to here, normal maps. I'm not going to touch anything, I'm just going to leave the standard settings. But in order for you to generate normal maps, remember I talked about this in the lecture, where you have to project the high res detail onto the low res. Now in order for you to bake the textures out for the normal map, you have to put the geometry detail, don't click on that, onto low res. So it's the low poly version that you have to take all the subdivision down to 1. Now if I come back to my normal map, I can hit create normal map. Don't worry about these settings, if you're working with Maya, this should work fine. Again, the process is the same. Clone normal map, go into your texture and hit flip vertical, and we're going to export it out. I'm just going to override that. You can see all that normal detail is appearing here. Now what we're going to do now is press OK on that, and we're going to load this texture onto into Maya. Now our model exists here. One of the things that you can do is when you're actually importing something back in, it's also good to export a low poly version of that same model from ZBrush, just because if you might have done some adjustments that might have moved the topology a little bit, but in this case it's fairly similar. I've already exported it out, so I'll just keep it the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that texture and the normal map onto this. What I'm going to do is firstly soften the edges of any hard surface objects that you have. So do this for your organic models. You don't want to see these hard shaded faces. Whenever you import a model or you create something using Quadro, you'll end up with these hard faces that you don't need. So if you select the object and go to mesh display and hit soften edges, you'll see that it softens the edges and it looks much more smoother now. It looks like you've actually smoothed the object, but you really haven't. It's still the same amount of polys, and you know, a lot of people, you know, press either they press 3 to kind of smooth the object. That's it, looking smooth. But if I press 1, it's no different. The only thing that I've actually done is smooth the edges on that, soften the edges on that. So you can harden the edges, so it takes it back to that, or you can take that and hit soften the edges. Now don't get used to just smoothing things, so make sure you can, this is an option that you can use. What I'm going to do is I'm going to load a texture up. Before I do that, I might just put a blend or something on this just to make the material a bit shinier, so I can see some kind of highlights. And I'm going to load up the normal map because first, just to show you how that looks like. So if I go and select the attributes of that blend, so just select on your model and then just navigate to the attributes on that where it says blend. I'm going to go down and hit this bump mapping option, hit file, under bump change that to tangent space normal, and I'm going to load up my normal map. So nothing's happened here. I'll change my settings. If you hit 6, give it a few seconds. Okay guys, I'll stop it here and I'll continue because it seems to have crashed, so I'll continue from this point.